Okay, hello everybody. It's great to have you everybody here. My name is Marc Hammoud. I'm representing the Swiss Quality, and I'm very, very proud to receive the amazing Margaret Buj. Margaret, hello.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for being here. Margaret, for those of our followers who do not necessarily know how brilliant and amazing you are, would you kindly present yourself?
Sure. So my name is Margaret Buj. I have been working in the talent acquisition space for 19 years right now. During that time, I've recruited for technology companies of different sizes, both for large organizations such as Microsoft, Expedia, or VMware, mid-sized tech companies, and also tech startups. And actually, I'm working for my third B2B SaaS company right now called Mixmax. And during that time, I've recruited very internationally and across all different functions, so technical and non all the corporate functions as well. I think I've recruited in every single country in Europe. But I've done quite a lot of work as well in the US, in Latin America, where we hire engineers right now, and also even a little bit in Africa or in Asia. So, and apart from that, as an interview coach, I've worked with over 1,000 of people one to one to help them get hired, promoted, and paid more. So, really happy to be here today, and yeah, just share some of my answer some of your questions.
Well, thank you, Margaret. We're happy to have you here. That's great.
And yeah, just share some of my answer some of your questions.
Well, thank you, Margaret. We're happy to have you here. That's great. Listening to what you're doing and what you have been doing, it's really impressive. And I would like, of course, to come with my first question, which is we have all learned at COVID 19 times how to work remotely. Tell me, please, how has the landscape of global talent acquisition evolved with the rise of remote work?
Oh, I think remote work has radically shifted the global acquisition landscape. I think for good and in some ways for worse, offering both opportunities and challenges, both for employers and job seekers. So I remember prior to COVID, before the remote work was born, companies were really largely limited to sourcing talent from local or regional markets. I still remember, having to recruit in one specific city or, say recruiting in Germany and having to find someone in just one of the maybe two locations. So that often meant missing out on highly skilled candidates who were geographically distant, but could really contribute meaningfully to an organization. Whereas now businesses can tap into a global talent pool, which can significantly increase the diversity and just depth of expertise in their teams. So from the recruitment perspective, remote work has allowed us to source top tier talent from across the world, opening doors to a more inclusive workforce. However, that's also fostered greater competition amongst candidates, as job seekers are no longer confined by location but must now compete on a global scale. So, on one hand, that's beneficial to companies, but it does make the job market harder for candidates because they need to differentiate themselves more clearly. And also, the dynamics of interviews have changed significantly. I mean, I know virtual interviews have been the norm for many years for many organizations, but not for all of them. Like right now, they are the norm, so people had to adapt. Candidates have to be comfortable with video communication, and their ability to communicate their skills and experience virtually has become a critical part of the hiring process. And recruiters, on the other hand, they need to refine their ability to assess not just the technical skills, but also cultural fit and interpersonal traits through remote interactions. So obviously there are tools like virtual assessment and different collaborative online tests. So that's really what a lot of recruiters are using. And, of course, there are challenges as managing time zones, understanding cross-cultural differences, creating effective onboarding for remote workers. So from what I'm seeing, companies are investing in technologies and platforms that support remote collaboration. And recruiters play a key role in ensuring that new hires can seamlessly integrate into remote teams. And I also think that finally companies are recognizing that remote work is not just a temporary fix, it's really a strategic advantage. And by offering more remote roles, they can attract talent that prioritizes work life balance and flexibility, which is important in a candidate driven market. So, as a result, the recruitment strategies have evolved to emphasize employer branding and showcasing the company's remote work culture as well. It could be a big differentiator. And there are many people that talk to me only because the role is remote. They actually like the role, but the companies ask them to go back to the office 3 days a week, and they don't want to do that. So it's a big advantage if you as a company can offer remote work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Indeed. I admit that from my entourage, from people in my family and friends, I do realize that for some of them, actually, it has become more competitive, more difficult. And I do agree with you that probably part of the answer is that now you have companies in Canada and Australia, hiring coders and programmers in South Asia. Please tell our colleagues and tell our friends and those who are listening to us what are the key skills that everybody who is looking for a job should develop today to stay competitive in the SaaS industry.
Yeah, I don't think it's just SaaS, although I know we're focusing on SaaS. So I would say
Yeah,
adaptability is one of the most important traits. So SaaS companies, obviously not just SaaS companies, but they evolve rapidly as they scale, often introducing new
exactly.
products and features and services on a regular basis. So job seekers must demonstrate that they can not only keep pace with these changes, but also thrive in an environment where agility and innovation are required. So this requires being open to learning new technologies, methodologies, and tools quickly. So continuous learning is important, whether it's through formal education, online courses, or certifications. I would also say, problem solving. So again, I think that goes for many different roles, but candidates who can showcase their ability to break down problems, develop innovative solutions, and implement those solutions effectively will definitely stand out. And whether you're in a technical role or a customer facing one, that ability to think critically and offer value driven solution is definitely something employers are looking for. Communication skills, again, that goes for any remote position, but for example, engineers must be able to explain technical concepts to non-technical stakeholders, and customer success teams need to be adept at translating client needs into product features. So this cross-functional collaboration requires not only strong verbal and written communication skills, but also ability to listen and adapt based on feedback. Teamwork and collaboration, again, that goes for any role, whether it's remote or hybrid, or but remote, hybrid, or on-site. But teamwork and collaboration, definitely very important in a SaaS environment. SaaS products are constantly evolving, so they require effort, like cohesive effort from multiple departments. So being able to work effectively within a team, whether that's in person or remotely, is a must. So demonstrating your ability to collaborate, to share insights, and contribute to the success of those cross-functional teams, that can help set you apart from other candidates. And I think I would also say, maybe on, like, as a last one, entrepreneurial mindset. SaaS companies, especially startups, are often looking for candidates who can take ownership of the roles and who can think strategically about how their work impacts their broader business. So being proactive, understanding business models, and having ability to contribute ideas that drive product growth or customer retention are qualities that SaaS companies value immensely. And of course, the technical skills as well.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. Margaret, if I may, I would like to go back maybe one step to the interview. I know a lot of people who are scared, like you have no idea of the interview. Even if for a lot of people today it's a remote interview, still a lot of people really fear the interview. Please tell me, in your experience, how can candidates stand out during the interview process, especially for tech roles, if I may?
Yeah, absolutely. So candidates who stand out in the interview process, particularly maybe in software development roles, but I'll give some more general advice, typically do so by being well prepared and going beyond the basics in their approach. So how can you do that? So firstly, demonstrate that you've done the research. And an interview is not a test to see if you read the company website. Demonstrating research means going beyond simply knowing the job title and company mission. It involves understanding the company's product, services, industry position, even the specific challenges they are facing. So, for example, know the company's tech stack. If you're applying for a software development position, this information should be available through job description, but also on a company website, GitHub repository, or even employee profiles on LinkedIn. So mentioning this in an interview, whether it's discussing your experience with the tech stack or asking insightful questions about it, shows that you are serious about the position. So, if you're an engineer, you can say something like, I noticed that your backend is built on Node.js and your databases are managed in MongoDB. I've worked extensively with these technologies in my past projects and would love to know how you manage scaling challenges with this architecture. That's something that you can ask the hiring manager. Also, understand the company's products or services. So candidates who take the time to really understand the product, even signing up for a free trial, for example, if it's a SaaS product. And if you're applying for a senior level position, especially a management position, I think it's a kind of a bad sign that you don't sign up for a free product just to see how the product works, because then you can provide some informed insights during the interview. And you can also align your responses to the company's needs. So, for example, you can say, I've used your software and I noticed that the feature for X, could benefit from optimization in Y area. I'd be excited to contribute to enhancing this aspect. Also, follow the company's industry news. So you want to be up to date on the company's recent announcements and product launches and even challenges, because that can help you tailor your responses. So if the company has just launched a new product or a feature, you can reference that during the interview to demonstrate your engagement and interest. So, for example, you could say, I've read about your recent acquisition of, X company and how that might expand your capabilities in AI. I'd love to contribute to that area given my background in machine learning. And also, you want to ask smart, targeted questions. So after conducting thorough research, you should really prepare some thoughtful company specific questions. So these questions, I mean, it's fine to ask what's the company culture like, but you also might want to ask, what would you expect me to achieve in the first 6 months? And you can also focus on the company's future direction. So, for example, I understand that your team is working on migrating parts of your infrastructure to the cloud. Can you share more about the challenges you face in that migration and how the team collaborates to overcome them? So just something to show that you've done the research. And the final thing I would say, prepare a lot of specific examples that demonstrate that you have the skills that employers are looking for. So I'm sure most people, we'll talk about it later, but I'm sure most people are aware of the STAR format: situation, task, action, result. So you always want to have enough examples of your achievements, problem solving, influencing, maybe negotiating, to show that you have the skills that they're looking for, that they are looking for. And you want to make sure also that you have tangible result at the end of all of these examples. So that's something that you definitely need to prepare prior to the interview, because it's highly unlikely you would remember these examples off the top of your head when asked in an interview.
Margaret, that's absolutely amazing. I could definitely agree with you on everything you mentioned. I can tell you so many times it happens that people who apply to work at the Swiss Quality, during the interview, we see that they have no idea what we do, genuinely no idea. And it is really surprising. How come you're coming to an interview having no idea?
Yeah. So, in fact, would you like me to maybe talk about some of these common mistakes that candidates
Yeah,
make?
please, please, yes,
Because
yes.
yeah, because that's kind of, yeah, that's one of these mistakes, right? That's definitely one of the. So, firstly, interviews are often high pressure situations, right? So even the most qualified candidates can make avoidable mistakes. So some of the most common mistakes I see would be just exactly what you've said: lack of preparation, right? So one of the most frequent mistakes is that the candidate comes to the interview prepared. So that manifests in not knowing enough about the company, its products, or the role itself, and sometimes some candidates even fail to read the job description, leading to misalignment in expectations. So thorough research is essential. So you want to, as I mentioned earlier, you want to learn about the company's mission, culture, key products or services, and the recent news or developments, and also understanding the specific responsibilities and expectations for the role is equally important. And then, as I mentioned earlier, preparing relevant examples from past experiences that demonstrate the required skills will allow you to make a stronger connection between your background and what the company needs. Another common mistake is giving very generic or rehearsed responses. So on one hand, yes, you do need to prepare, but if you provide very generic or very canned answers, you just don't showcase your unique skills and experiences. So employers want to hear specific examples that demonstrate, illustrate how you can contribute to the organizations, not just vague statements. So you want to tailor your responses to the company and the role, and you use that STAR format: situation, task, action, result. And that structure ensures, or challenge, action, results. So that stands for CAR. So that just ensures that you will provide specific, detailed answers that demonstrate how you've applied your skills in real world scenarios. So, for example, instead of saying, basic example, I'm a team player, a more compelling response would be, in my previous role, I worked on a cross-functional team to launch a new software product. I led the project management side, coordinating between developers and marketing, and we successfully launched 2 weeks ahead of schedule, increasing customer engagement by 50%.
Absolutely.
Much more impressive,
Absolutely.
right? Also, failing to ask questions. Candidates sometimes view the interviews as one-sided and they forget to ask thoughtful questions themselves. But that's interview is also for you to find out if that's the company you actually want to work for. So, and also, if you
Yeah.
don't ask any questions, this can give the impression that you are not generally interested in a company and you haven't thought deeply about the role. So prepare some questions, and yeah, like maybe ask about the company's long-term growth strategy, maybe ask about the challenges and how you could contribute to overcoming them. And also, talking too much or too little could be a mistake. So some candidates make the mistake of oversharing, just giving like really long-winded answers and giving off top of, going off topic. But others make the opposite mistake and they just literally give you a one word or one sentence answer, and then you don't really get that clear understanding of your experience. So you want to find the right balance. That's why it's a good idea to prepare your star examples prior to the interview, because you want to answer each question directly and concisely, staying on point, but you also want to provide enough detail to fully explain your response. So I would maybe aim for 2, maybe even 3 minutes per answer, the star answer. Also, depending on your level of experience, if you're a senior director, your answers could be a bit longer because you'll be talking about more complex examples. If you have a few years of experience, a 2 minute answer is, absolutely fine in terms of examples. So, and you want to practice those answers before the interview. And maybe a final one, well, not the final one, but there's a lot of them, but not following up as well. So always a good idea to send a thank you note or a follow-up after the interview, because that's, you can just reinforce your interest in the role. So I would recommend that you always send a follow-up thank you email within 24 hours of the interview. So thank the interviewer for the time and reiterate your interest in the role, and briefly you can also mention key points from the interview that highlight why you're a strong fit for the position. And maybe actually one last one, don't ever talk negatively about previous employer. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you've left the previous role, like obviously you've left for a reason, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Indeed. I admit that from my entourage, from people in my family and friends, I do realize that for some of them, actually, it has become more competitive, more difficult. And I do agree with you that probably part of the answer is that now you have companies in Canada and Australia hiring coders and programmers in South Asia. Please tell our colleagues and tell our friends and those who are listening to us, what are the key skills that everybody who is looking for a job should develop today to stay competitive in the SaaS industry?
like I think it's good to mention something that didn't work. You don't need to pretend that the job was perfect if you've left, especially if you've left after quite a short period of time. But I would just keep the answer to be very factual. For example, you can say, well, there've been a lot of change. Like I've actually had a candidate who said, I said, well, why did you leave after 6 months? And he said,
Yes.
well, to be honest, like the job was not what has been discussed during the interview. He joined the company and then his boss was fired after the month. Then his boss's boss was fired. There was no strategy for a few months, and it was just, I don't remember the details right now, but it was just like the job was not what has been discussed with him during the interview. So he just decided it was better to leave and find something that has just more long-term growth potential. So you can be factual, but you don't ever want to say, oh well, they don't know how to make decisions. My boss is an idiot. Like we never want to say. You never. But people sometimes do. I mean, they might not do it, but sometimes people are like, they, and you don't want to say that. You definitely don't want to say that. So, yeah. So, and I think just on those mistakes, practice ahead of time, right? Whether you practice with a friend, with an interview coach like myself, that can help you get more comfortable with different types of questions. Also, be authentic. Like, yes, I mean, you do want to prepare, but instead of trying to give a perfect answer, whatever the perfect answer is, focus on being genuine, because employers do value candidates who are authentic and transparent about their strengths and areas of growth. And also, you need to believe in your capabilities, abilities, and communicate with confidence, but without arrogance. Because being self-assured helps candidates to present themselves in the best possible light.
Thank you very much for sharing that. If I may, I would like to share something back with you. At this with quality, we always systematically, whenever we send an invitation to somebody to book their own interview, we give them some advice how to prepare for the interview. Like, for example, we say make sure that you are in a place where you have good connection, you have a good Wi-Fi, that you're using a computer, not on your mobile phone, and that you're ready. And we do mention that we will ask you to come on camera so that we have a discussion. And very often it seems that people do not read this part. So they come to the interview and they don't put their camera on. And when I ask them to put their camera on, I promise you, I'm not exaggerating. Often it happens that they say, oh, then give me a minute. And I'm like, give me a minute. And some of them tell me, I'm not dressed properly. I'm like, excuse me, you're coming. You're coming into an interview about a job that you apply to and you're not dressed properly. And I promise you, at least I had two persons telling me literally, actually, I'm not dressed at all. It's very hot in here. So give me a minute to put something on. I'm like, what?
Wow, that's crazy. That actually hasn't. But you know what? I mean, hopefully they're genuine candidates. But you also read about these like scams, right? These people from I don't know, no, I mentioned which
Yes,
country, but you know, they also will be like scammers. There was this
yes,
really great article. It was a whole article about these developers. I think they were from North Korea who kind of
yeah,
yeah. I know it was really interesting. But I think that's also why they would not go on camera.
yes.
And I think so.
We have had this
Again,
with
you have to be
some
prepared to go on
candidates.
camera for the interview. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. We have had this with some candidates from South Asia,
yeah.
where actually they don't want to come on camera because actually it's somebody trying to pass the interview for somebody else.
Exactly that. So it's not them, it's someone else, and
Yeah,
exactly that. And you know what?
right.
I think I've had a situation. I don't know. Like I've had a couple of situations. Mind you, it was a couple of years ago, but yeah, I didn't think the person was the person who applied. Like just the name and the accent, and anyway, and they couldn't really answer the questions properly in any case. But yeah, I mean, how can you hire someone without a video conversation? No way.
And that's why at the Swiss Quality, for example, we implemented a policy that says in every single interview, we inform the person and we take a screenshot so that we know it is really that person that we interviewed who is coming to the work afterwards.
Yeah,
And we regularly ask them to open their camera so that we can see each other. We can
absolutely.
build
Yeah,
trust.
absolutely.
Absolutely. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask one question, if you allow me. Even in 2024, surprisingly, for a lot of people, money is taboo. Like we shouldn't talk about money and they feel difficult to discuss money. How would you advise people who are applying for a job to dare talk about money?
Mhm. Yeah, so, well, firstly, ideally, you want to do some research first. You want to get an idea of what the salary would be for someone of your experience in your particular market. And typically, as a recruiter, I always ask this question, right? What are your salary expectations? But I think, firstly, do your research first. So before entering any discussion about the salary, it's really important to have a just understanding of the going market rate for the role that you're applying for. So how can you get this information? You can look at Glassdoor or PayScale. Mind you, Glassdoor isn't always accurate. I've seen salaries that were just vastly like
Okay.
lower than what the
Good.
actual salaries were. But anyway, it's still a good way, to so I would look at Glassdoor, I would look at PayScale. I would also look at some specific industry specific salary surveys to get a typical sense,
Yeah.
just of the typical salary range for the position, obviously adjusted for the location and company size. Some recruitment agencies will publish salary surveys for a specific area. So you might also want to put like, salary survey, data scientist, London as an example, and you
Yeah.
might be able to find something. So because
Yeah.
that can give you some realistic range to reference when responding. On one hand, I think it's for some companies it's good to try not to mention the expectation and just say something like, that you're open to discussing salary, but right now I'm just more focused on finding the right fit in terms of the role in the company. But at the same time, a lot of recruiters, including myself, who kind of try to push you to get, to get the range. So I would actually, I would just say mention the range. Don't ever mention a specific number because you're unlikely to get anything more than that. So like, for example, you can say something like, based on my research and understanding of the role, similar positions in the market typically of 50,000 and 100,000,
Yeah.
depending on the level of responsibility and specific requirements. So it's easier to mention the range. Ideally, you don't want to give a number too early, So
Yes. Yes.
once you've had a chance to maybe discuss and demonstrate the value, And if the recruiter asks early on, well, hopefully you can actually mention that you would like to find out more about the role first. But if that's not possible, just mention that range. And as I mentioned, provide a range rather than a single figure, because that also gives you room to negotiate later while showing that you've done the research. And important tip, like while giving a range, make sure that the lower end is still a number that you're gonna be comfortable with. So
Yes.
for example, based on my experience and the role's requirements, I would expect the salary to fall between 90,000 and 110,000. However, I'm open to discussing this further depending on the full compensation package and benefits. So that just gives you room to negotiate, later. And also you want to focus on value, not just the numbers. So you should use this opportunity to reinforce the value that you bring to the table. So instead of just naming the number, tie your expectations to your unique skills and experiences or outcomes that you can actually deliver, so for example, you can say, given my background in successfully leading software development projects and my expertise in cloud architecture, I believe a salary in the 90 to 100 100,000 range is appropriate, and I'm open to discussing how we can structure the compensation based on performance outcomes. So you can say something like that. And also consider the full compensation package. So, and again, you can't negotiate everything in every company. It just depends on the, in a smaller company, you probably have more room for negotiation, but you can maybe negotiate, stock options, bonuses, flexible working conditions, health insurance, professional development opportunities, then that can add significant value to compensation package as well. So there are different things that you can negotiate as well. And also, I think a lot of people are scared to negotiate at all because we know it's a tough market right now. Let's be honest, it's a tough market with a lot of competition, and some sectors obviously are doing better than others. But what I would like to say is that you will not always be able to negotiate. Like, if, for example, if I'm telling you that my maximum salary is say 100,000, and you know that from the first conversation, then you try to negotiate, I'm going to be quite upset because I've told you it's actually non-negotiable. But that's not always the case. Typically there will be some room for negotiation, and companies still value top talent. So even in competitive markets, like employers are willing to pay for high quality candidates who bring significant value to the organization. So if you've demonstrated strong technical skills and problem solving abilities, and you're a good cultural fit or cultural add, you have more leverage that you might think. So top performers are always in demand, and companies understand that they need to offer competitive packages to secure them. So you want to be realistic. I mean, you don't want to price yourself out of the market by asking for something completely out of the range, but at the same time, you don't want to undersell yourself, because if you accept an offer that's below your market value, you're probably going to feel undervalued and dissatisfied down the road, So be realistic about the economic conditions, but stay firm in your worth. So, for example, you could say, I understand the current market dynamics, but given my experience and responsibilities of this role, I believe that the salary in the 85 to 95,000 is fair. And as I said, you can try to negotiate other things like maybe sign-on bonus, extra vacation days, maybe remote working or flexible working conditions. So, like, let's say there's no room for negotiation on the salary, right? You could say, well, if the base salary is firm at 85,000, I'd be interested in discussing a sign-in bonus or additional vacation days to make the offer more competitive. So you can just try that, right? If you don't try, you don't get. Like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So yeah, it's always good. And negotiation should always take place after you've been made an offer, but before you accept, because that's where you've got most leverage. So you want to express the enthusiasm for the position. You want to make it clear that you're eager to contribute, and you want to approach the negotiation from a collaborative stance. So, like, for example, you could say, I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with your team. Based on my research and what I've learned about the role, I was hoping we could discuss the base salary slightly to better align with market rates. Based on my research and what I've learned about the role, I was hoping we could discuss increasing the base salary slightly to better align with market needs. So you can just say something like that. And also, negotiation is expected. Like, don't think you're gonna lose out on the opportunity because you ask for more money. I mean, if you ask for double the salary, yes, you actually might lose out on the opportunity. But most employers expect negotiation. They just view it as a professional part of the hiring process. So a well-prepared candidate who respectfully negotiates demonstrate confidence and strong understanding of their value. So it's just really important to approach the conversation with a positive tone, expressing enthusiasm for the role and flexibility in finding the solution that works for both parties.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. I would like, if you allow me, to move slightly from the person applying for a job, so the one who is going for the interview and who is negotiating his salary, to the person who's already working in the company, but maybe is looking for a promotion, especially in highly competitive fields. And we have a lot of those today. How would you advise those people to approach how to get promoted, especially in those highly competitive fields?
Sure. So, I mean, securing promotion in a competitive field, it's not just about doing good work. Like, that's kind of a given, right? It's about positioning yourself strategically, continuously improving, and ensuring that the decision makers know about you and they recognize your contribution. So, firstly, exceed expectations consistently. Performing well in a job is a given, but to stand out for a promotion, you need to consistently exceed expectations. So that means not just doing what's required, but going above and beyond in a way that benefits the organization. So how do you do that? You can take the initiative to solve problems or take on additional responsibilities that show leadership potential. For example, if you identify inefficiencies in the process, suggest and implement improvements. Proactively volunteering for high visibility projects or assignments also helps demonstrate your commitment and capability. Also, develop new skills. So, promotions often require taking on new responsibilities. So, you want to continuously upskill. And yeah, you want to be staying on top of latest tools and trends and methodologies. So, just always seek some professional development opportunities through courses, certification, even taking on challenging projects at work that stretch your abilities. So, it could be things like learning new programming languages, leadership skills or project management frameworks that can give you the edge that you need to step into a more senior position. Also, what's very important is to build strategic relationships and network within a company. So promotions are often influenced by how well you're known and trusted within the organization. Honestly, it's not enough to be just doing a good work and keep your head down and then no one actually knows about you. You're never gonna get that promotion. So you want to build strong relationships with colleagues, managers, and leaders because that will increase your visibility and ensures that you're top of mind when promotion opportunities arise. So make an effort to, by participating in cross-functional projects, attending company events, or even initiating informal check-ins with senior leaders. So you will want to seek out mentors or sponsors who can advocate for your promotion. These are individuals in leadership positions who can vouch for your work and who can guide your career development. And it's also important that you communicate your achievements. So sometimes employees assume that the hard work speaks for itself, but in reality, busy managers might not be fully aware of all of your contributions. So you want to be communicating your achievements regularly. So very important, keep track of your accomplishments and maybe have a Google Doc where you always add some positive feedback from your manager, from the client, and then find appropriate moments to share them with your manager. So during performance reviews, of course, but one-to-one meetings as well, and even informal check-ins, and frame your successes in terms of value that you bring to the company. For example, increasing efficiency, reducing cost, or driving revenue. So for example, you can say, in the last quarter, I led a project that improved the team's workflow, reducing time to market by 20%. Also, seek feedback and act on it. So you want to actively seek feedback from your manager or peers because that shows that you're committed to growth and self improvement. So ask for feedback on specific projects or areas where you can improve. And then, for example, if you're told that you need to work on your leadership skills, consider leading a team initiative or taking a leadership course to demonstrate your commitment to growth. And and I think, a couple more that demonstrate leadership potential. So promotions often go to individuals that demonstrate that leadership potential, even if they are not in a formal leadership role yet.
Absolutely.
So you can lead by example, in your current role as well. So you can maybe mentor junior team members, manage a project from start to finish, or you can just step up when challenges arise. So employers want to promote people who can lead with confidence and make sound decisions. So look for opportunities to demonstrate those qualities. And a final one, I would say, align yourself with the company goals. So promotions are more likely when your personal goals align with the company's objectives. So if you can demonstrate that your work directly contributes to the company long-term strategy, then you make a stronger case for your promotion. So how do you do that? You want to understand the company's priorities, whether it's innovation, growth, customer satisfaction, efficiency, and just position yourself as someone who can help drive those goals. So for example, if a company is focused on expanding its customer base, work on initiatives that enhance customer acquisition or retention and ensure that your contributions are visible to senior leaders.
Thank you very much for sharing this. I can definitely agree with you. I I genuinely feel like I would like for a couple of minutes to leave Mr. or Mrs. Candidate and to look at things from the side of the person who is recruiting, who is hiring. What are the challenges today, especially today, in the context of today? What are the challenges of hiring internationally, knowing that almost everybody has become mobile and a lot of companies actually are going and taking programmers from where they are, especially for tech roles? And in your opinion, how can companies overcome those challenges of hiring internationally today?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the company size, because if you are a huge company that has legal entities in many locations around the world, you can very easily hire them. In you already have HR people in those locations. But if you are not a huge company with huge HR departments, you can. I mean, I think the challenges are navigating different labor laws. So like every company has its own set of labor laws, tax regulations, employment standards, making it very difficult, well, complex to ensure compliance when hiring across borders. So, for example, laws regarding employee benefits, holidays, termination procedures, and contract types can really vary significantly from country to country. So, for example, at Mixmax, we only hire contractors. And, I mean, I've been here for 2.5 years. So obviously there are long-term contract positions. And we use a company like deal.com to hire contractors globally. There's another one called remote.com. It's kind of the same, I think. So, Deal takes care of the compliance, payroll, and taxes, making it much easier to manage those international contracts. So this allows us to hire top talent from anywhere. I mean, we don't hire anywhere. We hire in Europe and Latin America primarily for engineering. And we don't have to worry about the legal intricacies of each country's employment laws. Although, not everyone wants to work as a contractor. So that's obviously a challenge. As well, cultural differences can be a challenge, because hiring across different regions can just bring up cultural differences in work habits, communication styles, and expectations. And what might be considered acceptable in one country maybe will not align with some cultural norms in another. So we don't do that. But I know there are companies like investing in cultural sensitivity training for management and employees. So I think that's a great idea. I've not had a chance to do that, but I've been doing some reading. Additionally, hiring managers can just make an effort to understand the working styles and preferences of employees from different culture. Time zone management. So remote teams spread across the globe, they can really like struggle with coordinating meetings due to significant time differences. I mean, we don't hire in, say, Asia, because it just makes no sense for our teams are based in Europe and Latin America. So there is a half a day overlap, 4 hour overlap with teams in Brazil and Argentina, which is fine because they can still work together for a few hours. But it wouldn't make sense to hire someone who's like 8 hours. Like, how would that work? It wouldn't. So I think it's important as a company to establish clear expectations for communication and collaboration across time zones. So that could mean setting overlapping hours for meetings, like what we do, using asynchronous communication tools like Slack to keep everyone in the loop. And onboarding remote people can be challenging, especially when it comes to integrating them into company culture and making sure that they have access to the right resources. So I think implementing that strong remote onboarding process that includes virtual training and team introductions and ongoing support is very important. So tools like Slack and Zoom and any kind of project management platforms can help employees feel connected and feel as part of the team. But despite these challenges, I think the ability to hire globally gives companies access to wider range of talent, bringing in fresh skills and perspective. And yeah, so using platforms like Deal that could be great, because you can navigate those complexities of international hiring. So I have to say, it makes my job so much easier, that I don't have to hire a senior developer just in one country, but I can look at 30 countries. So maybe not 30, but not that many, but
Um,
I
Thank you very much
can.
for sharing that. At this Swiss Quality, among others, we have a few techniques that we use in interviews just to keep a minimum of professionalism whenever we are interviewing, such as, for example, we try as much as possible to have at least two people interviewing, not one.
Yeah,
And second, we systematically actually record, like we keep a video record of the interview in case there is a claim or
yeah,
something.
that's great.
And we have those techniques, and among others, we try to have something that allows us to have a very objective and fair comparison of the candidates.
Yeah,
Like, for example, put everybody, for example, in a sheet and then hide the names so that people cannot see the names and ask them to continue the evaluation
yeah.
so that it is blindfolded. In your opinion and your experience, what interview strategies or techniques have you found to be the most effective when you are hiring for technical roles?
Well, again, I think it just depends on the role as well, because hiring for technical roles requires like a nuanced approach, because it's not just about identifying candidates with the right hard skills, but it's also assessing their problem solving abilities, the teamwork and cultural fit. So, for technical positions, we use practical coding and technical challenges. We actually have like a custom coding challenge that's been developed in-house at Mixmax, but I know that there are, different tools like Codility or HackerLang, so you can use a platform to maybe test the candidates' technical skills. And then for the system design, as an example, you want system design interviews for developers. You want to present them with a problem that requires building or improving a system and see how they approach scalability, reliability, and security. Then, problem solving. So again, for developers, like you can do pair programming sessions or live coding with an interviewer, because that can give you insight into how the candidate communicates, handles feedback, and also collaborates under pressure. And it's not just the candidate's coding abilities, it's also, can they explain their thought process? Do they listen to feedback? Are they able to adjust their approach? And that's something that we assess people on. Typically, most companies will do some kind of behavioral or situational interviews, because that's that's the interviews when the candidates are asked to describe how they've dealt with a specific situation in the past. So you can ask questions like, tell me about a time when you faced a major technical challenge and how did you resolve it, or describe a situation where you had to collaborate with a team to complete a project under a tight deadline. You also want to assess the cultural fit and remote collaboration skills, because that's again so important if you work in a remote environment. So I think it's a good idea to ask some open-ended questions that reveal how a candidate handles remote work dynamics. So, for example, how do you stay organized and communicate effectively when working with remote teams? Or what tools do you use to collaborate on distributed projects? And I think you also want to focus on problem solving and learning ability. So yes, you do need the technical skills for a position, but a candidate's problem solving ability and willingness to learn, that's often a better long-term indicator of success. So a candidate might not know every technology, but again, depending on the role. If it's like a mid-level candidate, they might need to know that if it's like a staff engineer, language is just a tool, right? So if they don't know a specific tool, they can hopefully very quickly adapt. So you might want to include a problem that the candidate might not know offhand and see how they tackle that. So you can assess their approach to problem solving rather than whether they can produce the correct answer immediately. So these strategies can help identify well-rounded candidates who can not only excel technically, but also fit with the company culture and work collaboratively on the team.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. One of the positive consequences or outcomes of big society challenges, like for example COVID-19 and similar, is that it shakes society in a way that sometimes brings the best out of it, such as, for example, that you learn new ways of doing things or new ways of living. And sometimes actually it's an improvement, it's going forward. I'd like to ask you, for those who have transitioned into tech roles, or for those who want to transition to tech roles from other industries, say for example somebody who studied computer science and he knows what languages are, but for a while now he has been managing projects, and now he has decided he wants to go back to programming.
Mm-hmm.
For those people, what is your advice? How could they do it actually?
It's not easy. I think transitioning into a tech role from a non-technical background, it's not easy, but absolutely doable. In fact, one of my clients recently, he was in like a transportation sector, and he got a job at Amazon. So yeah, there are many professionals who successfully made that leap by leveraging transferable skills, focusing on the continuous learning, and obviously preparing really well for the interview. So I mean, firstly, what are your transferable skills? Because many roles outside of tech develop skills that are highly transferable to the tech industry, such as problem solving, project management, communication. So, for example, if you have experience leading projects, managing teams, or working in customer focused roles, you already have many skills that the tech employers need. So, for example, when applying for roles in tech, you might want to emphasize your transferable skills in resume and during interviews. So, for example, if you manage project in a non-tech industry, explain how those skills would help you excel as a project manager in a software development team. So show how your previous experience adds value to the tech role that you're pursuing. You can also take some relevant courses or certifications. So maybe like learning coding languages like, Python or JavaScript or SQL can help you transition into data science, software engineering, or product management roles. So there are platforms like Coursera or Udemy that offer accessible tech courses. So identify the key skills that are actually required for the positions that you are targeting, and then just take some courses or certifications. Or like, let's say you're moving into data analytics, certifications in data science or SQL or machine learning will demonstrate your commitment to learning required skills. Also build some kind of portfolio or work on personal projects. And I think that's probably the most important tip, because you need to have some practical experience, and that practical experience can be a game changer when transitioning into tech. So even if you haven't held a formal tech role, building a portfolio of personal projects or freelance work can showcase your skills and initiatives. So you can start working on small coding projects, data analysis or software development on platforms like GitHub, as an example. You can participate in hackathons or contribute to open source projects, because that allows you to demonstrate your technical abilities in a tangible way, which is particularly important for software development and data science positions. You also want to try to network and find some mentors in tech. Networking is really key when transitioning into a new industry. So build relationships with people who are already working in tech, attend industry events, and seek out mentors who can guide you on your journey. So you can use LinkedIn to find connect with tech professionals. You can attend webinars or virtual meetups. You can seek informational interviews to learn more about the industry, and if possible, try to find a mentor in the tech space who can help you, just offer guidance and help you understand the nuances of the field. And like, you can also find people on LinkedIn who've made a switch, just who changed careers. So like, let's say, okay, as an example, let's say you work in consulting. It could be anything, but let's say it's working in consulting. You can go to LinkedIn, go to all filters, and look at people working who they're in the previous role they worked in consulting. You can mention some of the names of those consulting companies, and then as the current company, mention the names of some of the companies you are interested in, and then mention the job titles. So you can try to find people who made the switch from your current industry to the tech industry, and again, you can try to reach out and arrange some informational interviews with them. And also, you always want to tailor your resume and your personal brand, because your resume and your LinkedIn profile should reflect your commitment to transitioning into tech. So you want to highlight any kind of relevant courses, certification, personal projects, and use keywords that align with tech roles that you are targeting. So always customize your resume to emphasize both transferable skills and any new technical skills that you've acquired, and also make sure that your LinkedIn profile reflects, your transition journey, so to speak, by featuring any relevant projects, certifications, and a clear headline as well that speaks to your target role.
Thank you very much for sharing this. I'd like to ask you, if you allow me, a final question that, frankly, is also about me and about my family. So I heard from my son yesterday that he's in Germany, and I heard that he is having some challenges actually in landing interviews.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone who is struggling with landing the interview to start with?
Yeah, so I would say two things, not just one piece, but two main pieces of advice. One, focus on tailoring your resume and LinkedIn profile for each application. I mean, LinkedIn profile, I guess you wouldn't tailor that much, but hopefully you don't apply for roles that are vastly different. So, generic applications don't stand out. So target your efforts towards specific roles and companies. You don't have to spend hours doing that. I know there are tools who can help you, which can help you tailor your resume, but honestly, you don't necessarily need them. You can just even just go to ChatGPT and say, this is my CV, this is my resume. I want to apply for this role. How would you tailor my resume? So you can just tailor your resume summary section, your CV, your resume summary section, and maybe the key skill section. So the tailoring I'm talking about takes 5 minutes. You don't need to spend an hour. Just okay. Like, are there any specific skills on the job description that you have? Then make sure that that's clear to anyone looking at your resume within 3 seconds. So I always recommend people have a CV summary section that really demonstrates what they can bring to the role, and that's the section you can tailor slightly, and maybe just reorganize some bullet points, just to really emphasize that you have the experience that they are looking for. So that's number one. Don't just send the same application, the same resume to different positions. And number
Everybody.
two, networking. So if you just rely on sending applications on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is great, but you could be looking for a very long time. So like connect with people in your target industry, attend webinars, ask for informational interviews, try to build relationships, try to have a list of target companies that you are interested in, and try to build relationships with people in those companies as well. And finally, you want to refine your personal brand. So make sure that your online presence is aligned with the roles you are seeking, and yeah, obviously don't hesitate to reach out to recruiters directly.
Amazing. Thank you very much. As a final question, do you agree that a lot of recruiters today do have a look at the social media of candidates and what they are writing?
Well, I think some do, some don't. I mean, I use LinkedIn a lot as a recruiter because that's how I find candidates. I personally don't bother looking at their, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram. I actually generally don't have the time. I know some hiring managers will do that, So I think it's like, I mean, I think you just never want to have anything on social media that puts you in a bad light. And I mean, on one hand, yes, it's up to you what you do in your spare time, but then why have it visible to the public? So either have like really strong privacy settings so that no one who doesn't know you can't actually check any of your social media profiles, or just don't put anything there that's will be detrimental potentially to your career. That's probably better advice in any case. Like have one profile just for your friends and family. So yeah, I personally I don't do that because I don't have the time. But yeah, some managers will definitely do that. And in fact, I remember one situation when, so my friend told me, so she was a recruiter in a pretty well-known company in adtech space, and they had someone on a final interview for a PR director, like a European PR director position. And this guy was meant to get the role. And she actually, I can't remember what was her, the hiring manager, but they looked at his social media, and oh my God, like this guy had pictures of him being drunk like every single weekend, like literally just loads of pictures in inebriated state and half naked, right?
Oh,
Yeah. So, and again, I'm sure he was a good professional, right? But the thing is, why have these pictures visible to the public? And it wasn't just one
exactly.
picture, it was like all the time. So anyway, just seems
Exactly.
like the person like to drink a lot, which again, you can do whatever you want in your spare time, but that actually cost him his job. They didn't give him the offer
Yes.
because of that.
Yes. Yes, I perfectly understand. Right, Margaret, thank you very much. It was really great fun talking to you. I'm sure that our followers have had a lot of fun watching this.
Well,
Thank you
thank you.
very
I
much.
will share
Anything
the
you'd like to
recording
say?
later as well. I think I'm losing my voice. Too much talking, too much talking. But no, it was great. Thank you so much for having me, and
Thank you very much for your time, and we really wish you all the best in your career.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Bye now.
Bye bye.